All right, let's dive into this Rheocasting thing. Everyone's talking about how it's going to like revolutionize how we make like intricate metal parts
Mm.
and do it all really efficiently too. So we've got a whole bunch of articles and some research notes here to help us, to help us figure out why it's such a big deal and to help us break it all down. We've got our expert here with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So like from what I'm seeing, Rheocasting, it kind of gives us the strength of forged metal, but with the design flexibility of, well, I don't know, something like a smoothie.
Huh. That's a pretty good analogy, actually. So Rheocasting, it takes the principles of what we call semi-solid metal casting, SSM for short. And it does something pretty unique with it. See, most SSM methods, they start with solid metal and you heat it up, right, until it's like partially liquid.
Okay.
But Rheocasting, it skips that whole first step. It creates that semi-solid state right from the get-go, right from the molten metal.
So instead of melting a solid chocolate bar to make like a ganache,
Hmm.
we're basically starting with a pot of already melted chocolate.
Yeah, exactly. And, it might seem like a pretty small difference at first, but
Yeah.
it's really key to understanding why Rheocasting is so darn efficient.
So it's all about getting that perfect like metal slurry
Yeah.
right from the start. Okay, that's making more sense to me now, especially when you think about how fast this process is
Mm,
and how little waste there is.
absolutely. So to really get into how it works, let's break down the 6 key stages of Rheocasting. First up, we gotta melt and refine the metal alloy that we're gonna be working with. Think of it like making sure your chocolate's perfectly tempered.
Right.
Any impurities, they could totally ruin the texture.
Interesting.
We need a really controlled process here to make sure that the molten metal is clean and that it's at just the right viscosity.
Viscosity.
Yeah, basically,
Yeah.
how easily it flows.
So we need the molten metal to be like runny enough for what comes next.
Wow. Exactly. And this next step is where things get really interesting. This is where we create the SSM slurry. So while the molten metal is being stirred, we carefully add metal chips to it.
Oh, okay.
Now, the combination of the stirring and these solid chips, it creates a really unique structure in the metal as it cools.
Hmm.
The metal, it solidifies without forming those like typical tree-like branches you'd normally see. We call this a non-dendritic structure.
So it's not just like chucking metal chips into the molten metal.
Mm.
There's a real technique to it.
Oh yeah, definitely. Think about it like making a smoothie. If you don't blend it right, you just end up with chunks,
Right.
not a smooth, consistent texture. It's kind of the same idea here. The way we add the chips and stir the molten metal, it's crucial to getting the right texture, or in this case, the microstructure of the final part.
I never thought I'd be comparing metal casting to making a smoothie. So getting that slurry right, that's everything. So what happens next?
Okay, so the next 3 stages are a bit more straightforward. It's injection, ejection, and then reheating. So the slurry, it gets injected into a mold where it solidifies super quickly, thanks to that unique structure we talked about.
Okay.
And then it's ejected from the mold. And here's the best part. Any leftover slurry,
Yeah.
we reheat it and reuse it. That's why there's very little waste in this whole process.
That's pretty amazing when you think about how much waste traditional metal casting can create.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, and there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Rheocast parts, because of, how that slurry solidifies, they have a really unique microstructure. They form these round grains, we call them globulites, and you won't find those in traditionally cast parts.
Globulites, huh? So not only does this process use this special slurry, it even creates special grains within the metal itself.
Yep. Pretty cool, right?
Ah.
These globulites, they actually act like tiny reinforcement structures throughout the whole metal part, making it way stronger than something made with traditional casting. For example, imagine a car door made with Rheocasting. Okay?
It could withstand a much stronger impact than a regular door, but without adding any extra weight.
Oh, wow. Okay, I'm getting it now. It's not just about making complex shapes, it's about making those shapes stronger and lighter at the same time.
Exactly.
But how do we even control how this special slurry behaves under pressure? I mean, that seems pretty crucial to getting those, intricate designs just right.
You're right. That's where rheology comes in. It's a whole field of study, actually. It
Mhm.
focuses on how materials, in this case, are metal slurry,
Yeah.
how they deform and flow under different
It's
conditions.
kind of like how honey flows differently than water.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm.
Rheology helps us understand exactly how the metal slurry is going to behave during that injection process.
Hmm.
It makes sure that it fills up every little nook and cranny of those complex molds you mentioned.
Okay, so let me see if I've got this straight. We've got this unique metal, like smoothie, made with this carefully controlled process and a deep understanding of how it behaves under pressure. And because of those, what are they called?
Right, globulites. The final parts are not only intricate, but they're also incredibly strong and lightweight. Wow, that's a lot to take in.
It is, but we're just getting started. Now that we've got the basics down, let's really dive into why this whole process is so revolutionary for industries around the world.
Oh, I am ready for that. I'm already picturing all sorts of possibilities with
Yeah.
this technology. Okay, so I'm convinced this is some really cool science, but
Mm.
how does it actually, change things for people like me?
Yeah.
What's the real world impact of being able to make these metal parts that are both, you know, strong and intricate?
Well, that's where it gets really exciting. Think about industries that need parts that are lightweight, but also incredibly durable.
Like what specifically? I mean, I'm picturing airplanes and cars, but what else?
You're spot on. The automotive industry is already using Rheocasting to make car components lighter, and that leads to better fuel efficiency and better performance overall. And in aerospace, lighter aircraft components mean we can fly further and use less fuel.
So this is about more than just, making cool shapes. It's about making things that are like better for the environment too.
Yeah, exactly. And it's not just about those big industries either. Rheocasting has the potential to completely revolutionize fields like medicine.
Oh, wow. I hadn't even thought about that. Tell me more.
Well, imagine medical implants that are like perfectly tailored to a patient's anatomy. Rheocasting allows for that level of customization while still making sure that the implant is strong, and biocompatible.
That's incredible. So we're talking about like life-changing applications here.
We are, and it's not just medical implants. Think about, surgical tools that are more precise
Oh, wow.
and less invasive, or even prosthetic limbs that are lighter and more responsive.
Wow, it sounds like the possibilities are just endless. I'm starting to see why people are calling this a game changer.
It really is a game changer. But, before we get too carried away, it's important to remember that Rheocasting it's still a relatively new technology. There are still challenges, that we need to overcome.
Like what kind of challenges?
Well, one of the biggest ones is controlling the process precisely enough to ensure consistent quality. Remember those globulites we talked about earlier? The
Yes.
size and distribution of those globulites, it's really critical to the strength of the final part.
So it's not just about, creating the slurry. It's about creating the right slurry.
Exactly. The viscosity of the slurry, the cooling rate, the injection pressure, all of these factors, they need to be super carefully managed to get that desired microstructure.
It sounds like a very delicate balancing act.
It is. But, as research and development continue to advance the technology, I'm confident that we'll overcome these challenges.
Okay, so we've covered like the amazing benefits of Rheocasting, its potential to really revolutionize so many different industries, and even some of the challenges that we still need to figure out. But
Yeah.
where do you see this technology going in the future? What's next for Rheocasting?
That's a great question. I think we're really just scratching the surface of what's possible with Rheocasting. As the technology, gets better and becomes more cost effective, I think we're going to see it used in a much wider range of applications.
I'm thinking about all those like crazy complex designs that just weren't possible before.
Right. And not just complex, but strong and lightweight too. We could
Mhm.
see Rheocasting being used to create everything from, customized medical implants to lighter and more durable consumer electronics.
So it's not just about these specialized industries anymore. It could really like impact our everyday lives.
Absolutely. Imagine a world where everyday objects are not only beautifully designed, but also incredibly strong and long-lasting.
Wow, it's a pretty amazing thought. So much for like flimsy plastic gadgets, huh?
Exactly. Rheocasting opens up the possibility of creating products that are not only functional, but also built to last,
This deep dive it's been truly eye-opening. I feel like I've gone from knowing almost nothing about Rheocasting to seeing how it could potentially, change the world around us.
Well, it's been a pleasure sharing my enthusiasm for this technology with you.
Before we wrap up, I have one final question for you and for our listener. With Rheocasting, enabling us to make parts that are both lightweight and strong, how do you think it will impact industries beyond the ones we've already talked about?
Ooh, that's a fascinating question to consider. It's really about thinking outside the box.
Could we see like Rheocast components in everyday objects, in our homes, our electronics, even our clothing?
Yeah. The possibilities are are truly endless. I encourage you to let your imagination run wild. Think about the objects that you use every single day and how Rheocasting could make them better, stronger,
It's
lighter.
almost like we're on the verge of like a new materials revolution.
It really does feel that way.
Well, on that note, we're going to have to leave you with that thought-provoking question. We encourage you to ponder it and maybe even do some further research on the applications of Rheocasting. And we want to thank our expert for joining us today and sharing their incredible insights on this groundbreaking technology. And of course, a huge thank you to you, our listener, for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Rheocasting. We hope you're as excited about all the possibilities as we are.
It's been a real pleasure sharing this journey of discovery with you. Who knows, maybe one day we'll all be surrounded by objects that were made possible by Rheocasting.
Yeah, and that's what's so cool about these deep dives, right? We start with something that might seem, kind of niche or technical, but we always end up exploring how it could impact like our everyday lives. So until next time, keep those imaginations churning and keep diving deep.